Hi everybody, Melissa Klein here, and I'm going to do a comparison of different pens, and this is the paper that I'm using. It's sort of meant for ink pens, it says, and I honestly really wish that I'd filmed this and then I realized that this was all blurry, but it was okay because most of the footage is because of my grip on my pens was basically my hand on top of these little drawings, so you didn't miss a thing, I promise you. But this is a kind of run through of what I used. A Uniball micro pen, a cheap ballpoint, fancy, and so on and so on and so on, chisel, Sharpie, blah blah blah. So Uniball Micro, it is a high quality pen that tends to it's one of those gel roller balls. Then I did this little drawing, and then what I did is took a brush with just plain water and went over it. And I want to say it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just a matter of knowing what things do. So you might want to have some sort of like a gray tone behind it or whatever. It gives a different quality. But I will say it was kind of nice in terms of the ink lines stayed where they're going to stay. Now, this next thing is a cheap ballpoint, and I was quite pleased with how this worked. I think I picked this up at some sort of stupid teacher conference thing, and I was able to get some nice crisp lines. I was able to get some nice fine things, and when I went over it with water, it did not budge at all. And here you kind of can see a little bit more close up. So sometimes like getting the most expensive thing isn't always the best. So this is something that I would recommend, especially if you had little delicate fine areas like faces and things like that for this. This is at Parker, and it's a beautiful pen, something I inherited from my father, so it's great personal meaning, and beautiful black tones with it. And before I went over this with the water, this was looking quite nice. But that said, if you want to have a dark goth look to things, and notice how to me this is a very true black. And you can get, the cartridges, they get used up, but then you can get new ones into it as well. So if you want like a gothy look, and then this will work for you just lovely. This is called the Prismacolor Chisel, and I use this mostly to for lettering or to when I want to get a little bit of a dimension to it. Or sometimes if I have a large area that I want to cover with it. But I did notice, I think was interesting was seeing how the different inks behave in these different brands. It's a very blue, has a lot of blue in this ink, and yet when it's on there, it looks very, very black. So this next one, Old Paper Mate Flare, it was like running out. And this is one of my frustrations with pens that don't have cartridges that I can replace, is that they run out and then they kind of have this sort of weird slow death. Now that said, if you want to have a kind of different, this might be nice for doing things like grass or texture, or maybe a really hairy sweater. No. And you can see how much it bled. Again, not necessarily that that's bad or good. It's just a matter of what you want for what you're trying to do. Sharpie, classic fine Sharpie. I found this a little bit clunky to draw with. Like I couldn't quite get like the fine detail feeling that I wanted, and yet there's a place for it. I will also say this about Sharpie. Like it says it's permanent, but permanent doesn't mean it's necessarily archival. And when I went to do the water over it, Sharpie did not budge at all, which was quite nice. Again, it's all a matter so if you want to use like watercolor with this, go ahead. It's going to work. It won't, and you don't want things to bleed. So that's something to think about. This is a regular, it calls itself fine. They both kind of call themselves fine point. I think the other one's the extra fine, but this is more the standard Sharpie, super clunky. But if you have a large area to cover and you want a bold line, that's something to think about for this as well. And again, when I did a water wash over it, it didn't move at all. So that's kind of a cool thing to think about. Now, you may not have, I don't want you to feel like, oh my God, I need to rush out and get all these different pens. No, just use you have around and just test it out and see it. Because really that's the main thing. Like these manufacturers, these brands will say whatever they're going to say, but at the end of the day, you won't know until you test it. So good luck, have fun, and now that song is stuck in my head. Thank you so much for watching.